Savvy Business Radio, home to over 500,000 listeners per month, and runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.
After 5 years of creating exciting business content with amazing businesses from around the world, Savvy is now creating a new video series entitled Heartbeat of the World. This series will feature experts from around the globe. We will highlight and discuss some of the greatest challenges facing the U.S. and the world. Co-create with us and find out more at bit.ly/savvypatron. Jason Criddle was the CEO of Legacy Status Investments for 2 years before starting the Smarter App Company in 2015, and Jason Criddle and Associates in 2016. He is not your typical investor, business coach, or author either. He doesn't come to speak or talk about his accomplishments. He comes to work and set your life on the right path. Mr. Criddle is the millennial with a passion for helping entrepreneurs and business-minded individuals succeed while focusing on the metaphysical and spiritual aspects of what it takes to drive greatness within oneself. Find out more about Jason Criddle at jasoncriddle.com or the Smarter App at thesmarterapp.com. Hi, Jason. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you today?
I am super fantastic. How are you, Christina?
I'm doing fabulous, and I'm super happy that our friend James just hooked us up this past couple days, and you are doing tremendous work out there helping entrepreneurs around the globe. You've helped so many startups get up and rolling, and you just have a phenomenal story. But before we go to all of that, just share what brought you to the world of entrepreneurship and starting your own businesses.
It started whenever I was a kid. I was 9 years old, and I remember thinking that it was so stupid that my parents fought with each other, and then they would tell each other that they love each other, and then they would talk so much about the jobs that they hated, and they would come home and they would go back to the jobs that they hated again, and so I grew up thinking that our education system was kind of silly, and that the way that we tried to make money was just kind of stupid. And so I had that entrepreneur spirit pretty much my entire life, all my teenage years up to my early 20s. But it was really when I was about 25 or 26 when I started learning the meaning of assets. And I had realized that even though I had an entrepreneur spirit, I really was just self-employed. And that's one of the things that I try to work on nowadays, especially with new entrepreneurs, is helping them to realize that being an entrepreneur is all about having assets that make income for you when you're not involved in those things.
That's fabulous. You just mentioned that, because I have quite a few friends who started their own business, including my partner and boyfriend of 10 years. He started his business 6 years ago, and it's grown quite well. But the thing about it is he's noticed that he's now working for it instead of it working for him. If he takes a day off, he ain't getting money coming into his business. And a lot of my other entrepreneur friends have done the same thing, including myself, setting it up where you need to be there in order for income to be generated. And that just makes you now a worker bee for your own business. Instead of working for somebody else, you're working for your business. How do you make that shift from not being a worker bee of your business, but now having the business work for you?
By taking a close, hard look at what you are doing with your time. Because if you are giving your time in exchange for income, then you are still self-employed and you're not really an entrepreneur. And this has nothing to do with the label or the title of entrepreneur. It really has to do with time. One of the things that I tell people is, nothing that I've done is lucky. What I've done is the byproduct of making very focused decisions, and money is the byproduct of the decisions that I've made. And so rather than focusing on giving your time in exchange for money, You should give your time to building, whether it's businesses or intellectual property, commodity service, whatever it is, automating it and building it to the point to where you do not have to give your time in order to make it, simply by, starting a podcast and selling advertising or sponsorships on that podcast. A book is no different than a rental property, except with a book, the air conditioner won't break and I won't have to go and fix that air conditioner. Once you write a book and you put it out there on the open market, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to sell. The selling of that book is predicated by what it is that you're doing for the world that will bring attention to that book. But what you're doing to bring attention for that book doesn't necessarily have to do anything with exchanging time for money. Once we make the decision to free up our time and start working on assets, start working on things that will work for us, then that's when everything truly changes. And people don't need to be afraid to ask for help in order to get to that point.
Yeah, those are fabulous points. And I like the way you mentioned focused decisions, because I think it's really easy. And we've heard of the shiny, what's it called? Shiny syndrome, where you're focused on 20 million different things. It can be really dangerous to be like, well, I need to be setting up a new website. I need to be doing this. And really, what is that doing to help grow wherever your focus is? I think often when I ask people, where do you want to end up? They don't have a clear picture where they want to end up. I just want to make money in my business. But not how do I want to serve people, and what I have to offer or serving people, and how is it making their life better? Do they really want what I have to offer? I mean, all of those questions.
Yeah, we touched on it right before we started. Recording. If somebody came to me and they said, I want to make $1 million, well, most people's solution to making $1 million is winning the lottery, which is really quite sad.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to make $1 million, then the question that I ask is, what are you willing to do for 1 million people? Because that's where that money will inevitably come from. And I think like you said, when we talked about focused decisions, if somebody does have a goal that they do want to reach, they don't have to be they call it like the jack of all trades, the master of none.
Yes.
If I want to start a website-based business that I believe could possibly make income for me, and I'm trying to build the website, and I'm trying to do the marketing, and I'm trying to do the sales, and I'm trying to run the company, and I'm doing all these things, I might really only be good at closing deals. I might not be good at cold calling. I might not be good at lead generation. I might be teaching myself how to build a website. Find out what your strengths are and focus on your strengths, and then delegate your weaknesses to people who mirror those as strengths. So hire a web developer, hire a marketing person, hire a person to go out and get your cold calls and your lead generation done. And then that way your entire life is focused on maybe just taking those 5 phone calls a day that will ultimately lead into 2 or 3 sales. And then all of a sudden that time is yours to spend. Yeah.
That is such a great way to look at it. And so true. I mean, I think we get stuck, a lot of us, entrepreneurs or people who start their own business. And it starts with, hey, I have a passion, whatever it might be. I had one guy who said, I like to make maps. So now I'm going to do that full time. But liking to do something, whether it's running or flying or whatever it is, doesn't necessarily translate into a profitable business. So I love that what you're saying. Take your greatest gifts, focus on that, and allow someone to do the things you're not good at. Now, we also talked before the interview that people might have misconceptions about what success is. They'll look at your success now and say, well, see, that's great. We can all do that. But we forget the little parts of all the struggle beforehand. And any great empire, any great business, any great anything built was not built without effort behind it. And we talked a little bit about how our society has become a society of mediocrity. Instead of like, I just want this quick, I want it done, and I just want to be there. But that does not lead to what really it takes to grow something very successful.
you said you have a boyfriend of 10 years now.
Yes.
And this doesn't have anything to do with business. Well, I mean, everything has business, society, behavior. It's all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
My parents' generation, like, you had to graduate high school. A man would have to graduate high school, and he would have to go to college, and he would get a job and get a car and get his own house before a woman would even be interested in him. And nowadays, a person can pick up their phone and they can just text a complete stranger, and not only text a complete stranger, but they could copy and paste messages to thousands and thousands and thousands of complete strangers, just playing the numbers game until they ultimately end up with whatever it is they're trying to get from that person, or whether it's malicious intent or the intent of love or a relationship or whatever. They can just play this numbers game. And that's what we're talking about mediocrity. But in reality, Earl Nightingale says success is the progressive realization of a worthy idea. And I believe that is what success is. Success is finding a goal, finding a purpose, and working every single day to go towards that purpose. And it doesn't matter if the end game is $1 million. It doesn't matter if the end game is raising your child at home and just having enough money in the bank to have income to sustain you. Both of those people are ultimately successful. But if they are not actively working towards whatever steps it is to get there, then they're not going to hit it. And the beautiful thing about being these loving, universal source creatures that we are, that came from God, and we have these powers of creativity and these powers of attraction and manifestation, is you don't have to have the answer. You just have to have the desire to make the decision. And once you make a decision about anything whatsoever, then the entire world will change around you to where you find all the steps that it takes in order to get to that decision. And I think the big thing that's missing from people is patience, not realizing that I could make this decision to make $1 million, but it could very well take me 3 years to get there. And understanding that whenever a failure or a hiccup gets in the way, I believe that that's really God or the universe or whatever you want to call it going, all right, let me put this other snag in your way and see if you're going to give up or make your way through it. And then we get through that snag, and then another one's put right there. And it's like, all right, I'm still testing you. I want to see if you're really going to do this. And if somebody can keep going through it, then eventually that goal will come.
So it's to see if you really have the fortitude and if you're going to stick by your desire and your goals. I remember in Think and Grow Rich, there was a story about how a man had sold some property because he was trying to get at the gold, and he kept digging and digging and digging, and there was nothing, and he kept digging. So he sold it. And the next person who got it, it was like he dug barely just a little bit, and bam, he hit gold.
Yeah, it touches back on what we just talked about. The story you're speaking about, yes, the guy bought this plot of land, and he hired some people to go and excavate the land, and never found anything, sold the land for a portion of what he actually bought it for. The next guy came out, and instead of just hiring people to dig, he hired an engineer to find what he was looking for. And so he brings out somebody that has gifts and strengths that are his weaknesses that he didn't have and the other guy didn't have. And by delegating that responsibility to somebody else, they all ended up very rich.
And it's such a marvelous representation of what we're talking about. And earlier you mentioned about using books or podcasts, different opportunities to help your business grow. And the interesting thing I found from doing podcasts and speaking events, and now I'm in the process of writing a book, is that sometimes we think, okay, I want to sell this book and I'm hoping to make money from it. But sometimes the way in which you either grow your business or make money doesn't necessarily come in the ways in which you would think. Like when I started the podcast initially, it was a marketing tool for my consulting business. I had never planned to make this a full-time business. But the opportunities that followed with, by me keeping focused on my original plan, opened up gates of opportunity that I would have never even imagined on day one. So, I think it's also staying flexible and open to that. You might want to make $1 million selling this book, but that book might be the launch pad for something even greater that you've not even imagined yet.
I wrote my first book as a marketing tool to help with my network marketing business. Mm-hmm. And by writing my first book about telling personal trainers that they should bring multi-level marketing into their personal training business. The first book was called Trainer to Trillionaire. I inevitably ended up being contracted by multiple multi-level marketing companies to come and speak to them about behavior, and which led to me being contracted to help millennials understand multi-level marketing, so that they could introduce this mindset to their younger generations and try and help out this 70-year-old industry, mm-hmm. which ultimately led to me realizing that I'm a content creator and I've just written dozens of books, which ultimately led to me starting a software company that we fixed everything that I found wrong in multi-level marketing. So, from that first book of a few years ago, of just writing that first book and going, oh yes, this is my answer. I'm going to put this book out and it's going to become a bestseller and I'm going to make so much money. I never thought mm-hmm. at one moment, the day that I published that book, that I was going to end up owning a software and investment firm many years later, focused around what it is that we're doing now. I never once thought that I was going to have a school program helping entrepreneurs. But it really just started with making the decision to get that first book out there.
Yeah. And it's amazing how that one step forward, and that's what I tell people. For me, a lot of the time during my journey to building my business, I didn't know how I was going to do the next step. Sometimes the finances were not in order, the capital, whatever. But I said, you know what? God has led me, because really this has been a journey that has been led by God and Spirit, that each time in prayer that I've been given a direction or next step to take, I don't know how it's going to turn out, how I'm really going to actually make the how come to be. But I said, you know what? God knows better than me. I'm just going to take the step forward in action. And each time the things I needed to make it go forward just came into my reality, what I need to make it happen. So I'm like, don't worry about the how, just focus on, where you want to get to. What is your end goal?
Yeah. James and I touched on that on his show that we recorded the other day, making decisions based on faith rather than making decisions based on fear. Yeah. And I think that any successful entrepreneur, this has nothing to do with religion. I think religion has kind of helped destroy our planet. I'm talking about faith. Mm-hmm. Having faith that we are worthy individuals that are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And if somebody really wants something, if I wanted to make an apple pie, mm-hmm. I use this example a lot. If I wanted to make an apple, I don't know how to make an apple pie, mm-hmm. but if I make the decision to make an apple pie, then eventually I'll find the directions, I'll get the ingredients, I'll figure out the patience that goes into making apple pie, and I can make the apple pie. It might not be the best apple pie, but at least I took all those steps. And it really just starts with the decision. And so many of us give up whenever we hit that first snag. We give up, people. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs are like, I found the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. And then 2 weeks later, they are done because they came across their first hiccup.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and they're like, well, I thought I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. I found something else. And, I call those serial entrepreneurs.
Yes.
We don't have to have the answers. All we have to have is the end goal. The end goal is, I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I want to make this amount of income. Mm-hmm. And then the rest is just a really cool freaking ride to get there.
That is so true. That is so true, Jason. I mean, interestingly, you mentioned this in your recent blog, but often when you get started, and I've learned the hard way to not share everything with your closest friends and family because they mean well, but if they've not been on the road to building a dream, often they're going to help you tear down the dream. Because like I said, a lot of times when these inspirations and led by God and Spirit telling me to go a certain direction to fulfill my destiny and my purpose, it seemed illogical. Money might not be in place, the timing might not be good, but I said, this is what God has directed me. I'm not going to falter on that. And people around me, my family and friends were like, well, maybe God meant in 10 years from now when you have better finances or something. I'm like, no, that's not what came up. But see, people want the easy route because we've been taught that it should be easy. And if it's not easy, then maybe it's not something you're meant to do. And I'm like, no, that just means I'm meant to buckle down even harder to make it happen.
I ask people very often, why do you ask somebody what they think about what you're going through? Because they more than likely don't think at all. Most people walk around with music lyrics and movie quotes and just random conversations playing throughout their head all the time. And that's not thinking. Thinking is being able to silence all that and work your way through a problem until you have a solution. Albert Einstein didn't have an over-enlarged brain. He wasn't born with some kind of gift. He taught himself how to think. Isaac Newton was a dropout, but he just happened to be born in a day and age where there was a plague. And in order to escape death and escape the plague, he locked himself up in a school. And he stayed in that school for many years where he was not educated. He taught himself how to think. And he created modern mathematics and science that we use nowadays. Wow. And if anybody had tried to teach him anything, then we could be living in a very, very different world right now. But we are here because of people having the ability to think through things, thinking through construction, thinking through what it would take to build a car. And if you do go to somebody to ask them for advice, then only go to somebody that's done it before. And most of our friends and family, they have never built anything successful. They have never built anything huge. I touched on this the other day. A couple weeks ago, I was on a radio show and the guy was asking me, well, if somebody wants to build a software idea, what is one of the first steps that they should take? And I told them to get as much of their business plan as they can together and immediately start aligning themselves with angel investors. And he said, so you're saying that as soon as somebody comes out with an idea, then they should immediately go and ask for money? No, I'm not saying that at all. I want you to go to an investor for advice and consultation, because if somebody's at the point to where they are now investing in companies, then they more than likely have a lot of know-how of how to get a business started and see a business all the way through to the point to where they have extra income sitting there to invest in other companies. Don't get advice from your broke friend that works at Taco Bell that is so pissed off. They're so angry at the fact that they're an assistant manager at Taco Bell right now that they do not want to see anybody in their life reach any kind of level of success. So they're going to tell you, stop, quit, give up. Oh, this is stupid. We're hiring at location 313 down the street. You should just give all this up and start making burritos for people.
Be real. Yeah. Make burritos. Yeah. it's a sad state, but no, I came across that myself, and God bless my family. I know they mean well, but I totally have stopped sharing certain things with people around me and look to hang out with people who are there, who are successful, like my mentor who I worked with. I saw that she's created a business that has continually been successful and growing every year. And I'm like, that's someone I want to hang with. She knows something I don't know, or maybe a lot of things I don't know. And I want to hang with people who are going to show me things. I can look at them and thought, okay, what's not working here that maybe they're doing that I could maybe model upon or use parts of it in my business.
My mom is retiring this year because I have literally done the exact opposite of everything she has ever told me my entire life.
Wow.
And it took a while. It took a while before she really started to understand me and support me. And especially the last 4 or 5 years of my life, because as soon as I started taking care of my daughter on my own, during the beginning journey of taking care of my daughter on my own, I had lost a couple of 100 pounds. I had become a personal trainer. And I like to tell people I helped 500 people lose 9,000 pounds. But on top of that, I heard 500 people talk about what they did not accomplish because they had kids. And I did this. I grew up in the same household, where my mom, she always made sure that we had a roof over our head. She always made sure that we had food, but she just never did anything worthwhile with her life. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot or a Power Ranger. And now I'm a Power Ranger, I'm a superhero, and that's what I see myself as and what my daughter calls me. And it is, like I said, it is literally because I did not listen to a single word that anybody close to me told me to do. My friends, my family, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on your show, but I'm going to not. There's this Robert Downey Jr. quote where he says, just smile and nod and do whatever the F you were going to keep doing anyway.
Right.
And I had to develop that mentality. And in order to reach any level of achievement, you really have to do that. You have to just completely ignore everybody, every single influence, and actively seek out the coaches and the mentors and the people who do support you through what you're going through, even if they don't understand it. Seek out the people that support you.
That is totally phenomenal. I like that you also touched on that traditional learning, college or school, not bad ways to learn some knowledge out of books, but to really get an education and to learn to think for yourself, it really requires that you go outside of the realm of just education and educate yourself through experiences, books as well, but people, just really get out there. And that's one of the blessings I've received through Savvy is meeting people around the globe who've given me all their different perspectives that have helped me see different parts of life and angles that I would have not previously understood or seen and gotten to know. So, just keep learning.
I like to do this trick every once in a while whenever I go speak to groups of people, and you and me can do it right now. You have to do it, okay?
Okay.
So on the count of 3, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine watching a movie or something like that where a Buddhist monk is chanting a long extended Om. And you and I are going to do it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Om. And it doesn't matter if I'm standing in front of 3 people or the largest group that I did this to was 1,600 people. Everybody immediately on the count of 3 did it in unison. Why? Because it's already inside us. We did not learn how to do it. They didn't go to school to see, I'd be willing to bet that these people didn't just go to some meditation, clinic or something right before I spoke to them. It's something that is in us. And speaking from, I don't like to talk about things that I have done because to me, I think all human beings should be doing more. I've actually written about 90 books. It's just that 20 or so of them are published because it takes longer to edit and publish than it does to to write.
Yeah.
But as far as what it is that my first book was 25,000 words. Now I can write 50,000 words in a weekend if I really sit down and put my mind to it.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, what I write about, I learn about it after I've written it. And after I go back and read what I wrote. I was offered a book contract for my first book, and I eventually made the decision to start a publishing company for assets, so that I could own everybody else's, so I could have a part in other people's intellectual property.
Yeah.
But I just happened to make friends with Ron Bracken at the time, and he wrote The Son of Hamas, which is a New York Times bestseller. Just one of those things where the right person at the right time happened to come into my life. And he asked me, are you writing your books to become a best-selling author? Or are you writing your books because God gave you the gift to write? And whenever he said that, I said, well, damn, it's because I have this gift to write. I have this gift to create. I could care less if my books sell. I could care less. I wanted a book contract, and as soon as I was offered a book contract, I turned it down because I wasn't at all trying to make money off of my books. I was trying to tell a story that could help people. And like I said earlier, again, money just happens to be the byproduct of it. And no matter what kind of business that we're trying to start, no matter what influences we have, I mean, everything that we have in this show, it's all encompassed in this right here. You have to do something to help other people. It doesn't matter if it's clothing them, if it's educating them, if it's feeding them, if it's taking care of their feet. It doesn't matter what it is. If money does not manifest because you stand in a mirror and tell yourself 1,000 times a day, I am a millionaire. Money comes from people.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the ability to help somebody do something, which would in turn make them buy what it is that you're trying to sell, then your business will never get off the ground. It really is that simple. Help people first, give value to people first, and then the money comes.
That is such a great way to end. I'm so grateful you came on, but I don't want us to leave and end the show without everyone finding out where they can find out more about you and your new app, which you didn't get to mention, but share that with them.
The Smarter App Company is making apps that pretty much the whole point is to turn a person into an industry. I believe that everybody in the world has a story. I believe that everybody in the world has their own customer base, just doing exactly what they are, being exactly who they are. And so if somebody wants to check out the Smarter App Company, SMARTR, they can find those apps anywhere. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, schedule me for a podcast, if they want me to come work with them for the day, they can go to either app store and just download the Jason app. So, that's like the easiest way to get a hold of me, just the Jason app.
I love it. Well, I want to thank you again, Jason, for sharing your wonderful gifts and blessings today on Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you so much.
After 5 years of creating exciting business content with amazing businesses from around the world, Savvy is now creating a new video series entitled Heartbeat of the World. This series will feature experts from around the globe. We will highlight and discuss some of the greatest challenges facing the U.S. and the world. Co-create with us and find out more at bit.ly/savvypatron.